Welcome everyone. Today we have a very special guide for the Hunter build. In this particular Hunter build, it is very effective. We have rised from Lord of White Spire 400 plus to the world top 50 with this build. We have ended up top 4 in every of the Hunter game we played. I know a little luck for that as well. And this is a very good rank up guide for the newest meta. Because the Pioneer builds are nerfed, lots of changes, so right now Hunters are definitely on the rise. The core concept is here. Lycan is now a hunter. With Lycan added, there are 7 hunters versus the 6 hunters before the patch, especially most of the hunters are below 4 cost. The availability of the hunters in the early and mid game is really standing out because of this. There's a fast paced meta, you want to have the hunters soon and have the synergies very ready. This can be combined with our saving aggressive spending strategy to make things work wonderfully well. Because we're saving so greedily at the start and then spending very aggressively after round 15, this allows us to end up top 4 position as we tend to kill others or protect our own HP. And as suggested, this guide is built into 2 formats. One is a summarized format, so we can see that what units to pick. One explains further with the dot points. Let's have a look at early game. Early game is when we pick units, fuse them into 2 stars and save up our economy. Early, the alliance we're looking for is Hunters 3, Warriors, Druids, Heartless and Savage. We'll be keeping pairs in round 1 to 4 and build an alliance around the early 2 stars we find. And usually if we don't have much, we should aim for the 3 Warriors if possible. We can then add other alliance to those 3 warriors, because warriors have 10 armor and is very strong in the early games. Don't worry about saving up until round 7 or 8, so yes, we can spend 5 gold to level from level 4 to level 5. At round 9, we can be leveling up to level 6. It says it right here. At level 9, level up to level 6. We have a great unit on the bench to put down. We have additional alliance to be added, like Hunters, Warriors and the Heartless. We're protecting a win streak. If those don't match, I might not level to level 6. I'll keep the 5 gold, which can be useful for us fast pasting into 50 gold to save up. The key units we'll be looking for are Jaw Ranger plus the Pudge for Heartless, Beastmaster plus another Brownie for the Brownies, 2-star Enchantress plus another Druid. We often tend to find Enchantress before any other Druids. I prefer to go 2-star Enchantress with Stream Protector, but a Fury can work. Of course, you want the Lone Druid for the easy Druids and Savage. The tiny Tusk and Lycan can also be used very nicely, especially Tusk and Lycan with the bleeding of Tooth and Claw. For round 4, how we prioritize our unit choice, because we only have few gold, we have the Jaw Ranger and Beastmaster on top of everything. Wind Ranger, Tiny and Pudge is the second tier of choice, Axe and Juggernaut the third one, lastly Tusk and Enchantress. Because it's such a few gold and so critical in a few rounds to make the hunter composition work, those are my choices and they tend to work pretty well. After round 4, we'll be collecting key pairs for the alliance we described above. Once we find them into 2-star, we can adjust accordingly. We want to position the Jaw Ranger in the middle of the team because whoever is next to her will gain the attack speed buff, which can be very relevant even at 1-star. Let's look at the normal item choices. Those will be Embarrassment, Blightstone, Fall from Grace, Blink Dagger, Octarine Essence and Smuggler. Those can be the great items we'll look on the lookout for during the early rounds from 1 to 15. Blightstone is great, it allows hunters to better focus on units. We tend to go into a corner and we tend to focus on 1 unit at a time, so multiple Blightstone on different units stack. Having 2 Blightstone give extra 2 Heartless. If you think about it, it's minus 6 armor. It tends to be very underrated, so Blightstone is very strong for hunters. So if we already have 2 Heartless, having 2 Blightstone give us another Heartless, it's very good. Fall from Grace, use the same idea with the Blightstone to make more Heartless. With Lycan as a hunter and a human, a number of humans on the warrior lineup can help us to find 4 Heartless very nicely. We can have Conquer, Lycan, Jaw Ranger and Pudge. We can also have the Necro in the fray when we don't have enough hunters. When we don't have enough humans or the Heartless. Hunter is all about auto attack and physical damage, so minus armor is very crucial for us. Keep in mind, try to not go for 6 Heartless unless we get lots of them very early, because I have tried it before. It seems to be too much because Lich Even Lich and Necro in the late game is not great unless we build around them with Warlocks and Mages. Blink Dagger. Have you tried out Axe? Because Axe have only 50 mana. Blink Dagger gives 50 mana and Axe cast instantly. This makes Axe viable for the late game. Blink Dagger on Beastmaster, Tidehunter, Conquer, Techies is wonderful because of the mana gain, and they want to get into the fray of the battle to cast earlier. And Techies with Blink Dagger with 4 Heartless is beautiful. You do want a 2-star Techies, but 1-star can also work. Octarine Essence is one of the best late game scaling items while we can find in early game. On the Beastmaster, Necrophile, Gyro, Techies, and any units with less than 10-second cooldown or even 10 seconds can be great. The key is this unit should be AoE damaging the enemy, so the next level of mana gain is coming from the first AoE. So this makes use of the lower cooldown. If a unit is not doing much AoE, and then with Octarine Essence, likely it will not be casting the second spell fast enough because of lack of mana gain. The key alliance items here are Forged in Battle, Hunter Focus, Tooth and Claw, and Unstoppable. So try to start with Brownie units in round 1 to 3 in the PvE fights, because those initial kills can count up even when we find the Forged in Battle after. So our Brownies are like Pokemons that needs to be trained at the very start. This is how we have the strongest Pokemons in the end game, because if you're like, hey, how does he have 50 kills already? We started at the PvE rounds. So at the PvE rounds, I won't put down Jaw Ranger, I put down Beastmaster and Axe most of the time to get them the kills. Tooth and Claw is one of the strongest early game items. To try it on Venomancer, Tusk, Enchantress, and Lycan, they are great damage that stacks. To allow us to save up gold because they give us early game win streaks and early game win bonus, because the bleeding damage is often very strong because units don't do much damage early game. If you just hit once and it's 10 damage or 7 damage per second, it's massive. Here we can even consider 4 Savages or go further with the Savages. If Hunter doesn't come, we can go into Savage, Warriors, Heartless, and then we can build into 3 stars. If you want to go with the Savage route, you do need 3 stars for the late game. So 3-star Lycan, 3-star Venom, 3-star Druids is going to be critical. But even with Tooth and Claw, I can transition into Hunters using this lead in early game. The advantage of those early game choices is that we have good strength in the early game, a wide choice of alliance combinations, and very flexible unit choices. The disadvantage is we're not good at versus assassins, and the 3-star or 2-star Druid team that came early in the early game can destroy us with the healing, because we don't do enough damage at the start. I think most teams can't beat the Druids because of that. Let's look into multiple lineup choices. I have made extra detailed choices for the early game because I feel this is the key for the early game. We have the early game variation to provide the help that, we need a solid lead, or we need to not lose too badly. Because if you lose the early game, it's very hard to come back. Also, the early game gave us win bonus and win streaks, which can be great for us. So in the first lineup, we only have 5 units. This is before round 9, so we'll have 2 variations. 1 variation before round 9 and 1 after round 9. So usually you want to be saving up with 6 units, but before round 9, you most likely have only 5 units. Some of those units can be 1-star, some of them can be 2-star. Here the key is Jaw Ranger, Beastmaster, while Axe is the main tank. Patch is just off tank. Beastmaster protect against any assassins, while the Jaw Ranger is in the center of things to buff everyone with attack speed. Likely the melees don't need attack speed as they run forward. The key here is Jaw Ranger and Windrunner surviving. The next one we have is on the case that we don't find the Hunters, but we can still make things work. The highlight here is having 3 warriors. Axe, Tusk, and Patch are the warriors. Lycan is just here with the Tusk as the Savage, and this kind of early game strength is quite strong with Lycan. The Jaw Ranger is to be in the thick of things, to be buffing everyone, so we're really forward positioned to buff all the warriors with attack speed. The Heartless allow us to do more damage, and once we pick up another Hunter, we'll have the Lycan with Savage and Hunter. On this particular one, we can't find anything great, so 2-star Tiny can work, so this definitely has to be a 2-star Tiny. We can't even find a Patch, so we can use Abaddon. This gives us Heartless and Hunters. This is not the ideal Hunter lineup, but this can still work before round 9. Here we'll be looking at 6 units. Those 6 units can be started at round 9, and from round 9 we're pretty much going to saving mode from round 9 to round 15. and those units are going to stay with us. We might have minor adjustments, but most of the time those units will be strong enough to defend against most compositions as we fight them into 2-star. Looking over at this build, Pudge is the main tank. Two reasons that he's here. One is that if he's under attack, he will be casting spell and hooking one of the protected enemy units in the corner, or if he's further enough, he can be hooking an assassin that's attacking us in the backline. Tiny off tanks and stuns, we hope Tiny to stun multiple times. Lycan can defend against assassins. He doesn't have to be first into the battle, unless it's a 2-star Lycan, and we want him to be doing damage. So T is where the Beastmaster usually stands. Tusk just a warrior and a savage to provide us with the most synergy that's cheap enough. And yes, this hunter does have 4 combination of alliance at the very start, so it's a very good hunter build. Let's look at some other hunter types. In this one, we do have 6 units. We have Brownie, Warrior, and Hunters. We're looking for the Pudge, and as you can see, the name says, where's my Pudge? The Slaughter just a standing for the Warrior. Slaughter can be a Juggernaut, Slaughter can be a Tusk, or anything. Here the highlight is having an Axe as a main tank. Tiny can be 1-star or 2-star. Beastmaster protects us against assassins. Also, he's coming a little later, so he's not focus fired. Imagine an assassin that jumps in. He'll be hitting the Joranger or the Beastmaster, which gives Beastmaster time to get some mana and even cast Axe. Lastly, what happens when we find a very crucial item for this build? It is the 4 from Grace. With the 4 from Grace, with only 6 units, we'll have 4 Heartless, we'll have the 4 Heartless, we'll have the 3 Hunters, and we also have the Brownies. The Brownies are the ones that tanks for us, while the Heartless and the Joranger and Necro will do lots of damage. The Lycan is also here because of the Wolves that benefits from the Hunters. Lycan can be any other hunter. The key here is to try to have the... Lycan is key here because Lycan is one of the humans that go into Heartless. I almost forgot that. So what happens is at level 7 we add in as a warrior, and this lineup is so strong. We're in the frontal position to allow Necromancer to be AoE his spells of healing and damage onto everyone. Looking into the mid game. The mid game starts at round 14 to 21 for me. It used to start on round 16, but now with the fast pace of the game, it starts a little earlier. Let's have a look at the 2 things we want to be focusing on, the saving tips and the spending tips. Saving starts at round 8 to 9 onto round 15 for me. We will be aiming to save up multiples of 10 gold, which will build into interest. Every 10 gold that's unspent will give us 1 gold. So for example, we want to have 10 gold at the start of round 9, or maybe 20 gold at the start of round 11. The first things to note is that we want to keep only core units. When we are close to additional interest savings, say we're on 29 gold or 38 gold, we'll have units on the bench. We want to sell some of the units we might not be needing anytime soon, and want to save up as much as we can. Sometimes I'm even happy to have 1 less units on the board to just save up if that's not a crucial unit I'm selling, and also I'm out with if I'm having a losing streak. So the logic behind this is that if a bench unit, say a no hunter on non-tier 4 unit, the tier 4 unit can also be sold though, keep in mind, but sometimes they can be a crucial one like Marana, Necromancer. So those units cannot be added onto the board even after we level up. So if we have multiple choices of units to be added, but I'm at level 6 already, when I level to level 7, I can't even add those units, I can be selling them for gold. That's the first check. The second thing is, we should ask ourselves, is it worth it if I spend extra gold to buy this unit that is already on the bench? Because if I have 1 axe that's on the bench, I already have a 2-star axe on the board. This axe is costing me 1 gold if I'm currently sitting on 29 gold. Because I can be making additional gold if I sold the axe, so the axe is costing me 2 gold on the bench. We also want to purchase units after the battle phase. There's 2 phases of the game. One is the preparation phase, where we can move around units and place them on the board, reposition. The battle phase starts when we fight other players or fight neutral monsters. We want to keep most of the units from the shop and purchase them on the bench to be finding 2-star units. At times, I sometimes find a 2-star shut-off in this way. I don't really need the shut-off in the Hunters, but it's so great as a 2-star early game. They can be sold on the next round before the battle phase again for the saving. So this way you're taking units you might not need deny others, and also increase your chance of finding your units slightly. After we look at the saving tip, we want to look at the spending tips. Here we'll be introducing an idea with pre-spending on the battle phase round. We will gain 1 XP per round automatically at the start of each round. So what that means is at round 8, if we're having 3/8 XP, which most people do have that, for level 9, if we spend 5 gold during the battle phase of round 8, this will enable us to level up at round 9, at the start of round 9, and we will receive level 6 rates, because we go to level 6 automatically at 9, and we get that particular rate. So if we waited to level 6 at round 9, we still get level 5 rates. The difference between level 6 and level 5 rates can be a purple unit, can be a crucial one, maybe a Doom hunt, maybe a Marana, or maybe something we're looking for. Also, this also increases the rates of a tier 3 unit, which can be a sniper, can be a Lycan. Now this can be super effective at times because we can use the same trick of pre-level at round 16. During round 16 battle phase, we can pre-level to 23/24 XP, which will take us to level 8 upon round 17. And this free roll in the shop can come to us with a legendary, say a Gyrocopter or maybe a Medusa. I have had this before, so this is definitely worth it to do this because we don't lose anything. Make sure you don't extra click though, because then you spend extra 5 gold. We'll be looking at a few HP indicators. The first one is when HP is below 50% after round 15, we want to be aggressively spending or aggressively leveling. We want to pre-level on round 15 during the battle phase and on round 16 during the battle phase, which will take us to level 7 and level 8 at round 16. By doing so, we get the level 7 and level 8 rate, and on top of that, we have more units to be added. After that, with enough saving backing us up, we'll be rolling down the saving, what's remaining, down to 20, 10 and 0 if needed. Because we're losing lots of HP, we want to go all in early to prevent the HP loss and to start to, punish others for their lack of spending. Most other players are saving up at this stage. They are at level 7. They're waiting for round 20 before they spend because most players tend to spend at level 8 after round 20. We can start a small win streak and also profit with the win bonus per round by defeating them, or if we're super weak, we can at least reduce the amount of HP we lost per round. This is when the game hasn't been doing well for us and we want to be a little aggressive. This is like make a last stand slightly earlier. When our HP is above 60% at round 15, there's a few choices. First, let's consider how strong our board is. Compare with others by opening a scoreboard. Let's look at 2 things. The number of 2-stars everyone have compared to us, and also how much is the entire lineup cost. Those are 2 indicators. Other things is just global items, if they have a good alliance with global items, and how strong do we fare against them in our battles. So we want to kind of feel off that, and then we look into the options we have. Option number 1. We can go to level 7 at round 17 and level 8 at round 21. This is the usual one. You can also use the pre-level strategy to get extra rolling with rates. But we want to roll down pretty deep here. We want to roll down to 30 or 20 gold during round 17, round 18, and then want to go further. After round 21, we roll down to 30 or 20 gold. We'll be rolling for 2-star units and higher tier 4 cost and 5 cost units. Those can be Marana, Tidehunter, Medusa, Gyrocopter, maybe a Lich, things that can work for us. The second option is we'll go to level 7 as normal at round 17. At round 21, we'll go to level 9. There's a big difference here because this particular hunter guide is focused on mostly units to 2-star. And by rolling at level 9 instead of level 8, there's such a high rate for Gyrocopter, Lich, and Medusa. For this particular option is when we have a majority of the units to 2-star already. And if that's the case, rolling continuously at level 8 will not result in a massive gain of units. But if we take the aggressive spending strategy, we have the advantage which on top of the units we find, we have more units on the board to be fighting for us. So we can be punishing others with these more powerful units we find and also protecting our HP. So often in games, we can be 70 or 60 HP and most others are down to 30% HP. The downside of this, of course, is that we will be very far away from a 3-star unit. The key units we'll be looking for are Maranas, Necrophos, Disruptor, Conquer, Tide. The problem with Tide is that he's only good with the starter for the scaled, as a third warrior. He's only effective as 2-star. 1-star Tide is just very minimum. He doesn't do enough. He needs a buff at 1-star. As we level up, we should consider units that adds towards our lineup as a whole, because we'll be looking at 8 or 9 units at the moment, and things like Heartless, which minus 5 armor, give 22% more physical damage dealt for all the team. Also units like the Scaled for the mages, or maybe AoE Stunner, so things that helps everyone together. Let's look at the item choices. We have the Maelstrom. This is definitely a top pick tier 3 item for the hunters. Our double attack percentage allows us to trigger multiple attacks, which can trigger the lightning multiple times. With so many druids and beasts, or so many savages running around with summons, the Maelstrom can really help clean those up as well. The battery is very nice because of the same logic of multiple attacks with hunters, but this time it stuns. The mechanism is a very good AoE healing item for the hunters. Most hunters at 2-star have a very low HP, and we want this item to be defensively protecting our hunters. This can charge up the hunters with another round of spells when the AoE hits us, and we usually position on the Draw Ranger, who has very low HP pool at 2-star, also is in the center of most of the hunters. Battlefield is very nice on 2-star and 3-star Lycan or Beastmaster. Both can trigger multi-attack, and the cleave and additional damage allows him to do so much. Lycan is a great candidate unless Beastmaster already have a Forging battle, because he can benefit more from the kills compared to Lycan. Of course, a 3-star Beastmaster or the 3-star Lycan can be very strong with Battle Fury. If you have tried it, it's deadly. The hunters, it just wipes the entire team. As for the pipe, which give us magic defense, it's the same logic as the mech, which most spells that hit the backline onto hunters are the magical spells. And because of that, pipe give hunters everyone 400 additional health in comparison, and that's very good. The purple item Recruiter is great for all stages when we find them. The only downside with this item is when we find it before we're about to die. So we're 1 round away from dying, we have no gold at all. And if that's the case, we'll pick an item that helps us right now. The advantage of this particular mid-game strategy is that if we saved correctly before round 15, our economy is enough for the aggressive spending, which will keep us ahead of the pack. All this will minimize the HP we lose after round 18 or after 21. Our aggression can also create a great HP difference between other players, which is when we're in the lead, we keep going into the lead. This is super important because once we get into the late game, often enough, I'm not the strongest player, but I have the most HP. I can afford to lose a few rounds while other players can't afford to lose 1 or 2 rounds. The disadvantage of this strategy is there's less income after round 15, and we usually only find 1 or 2 3-stars maximum on this build, and we usually only goes for Draw Ranger and Beastmaster. Even Lycan's a bait first. Over here, I have made a few lineup choices, positioning and alliance variation for the mid-game. Most of those teams are 8 units, and we haven't added the 9 units team. For the 9 units team will be added for the late game variations. Keep in mind those 8 units team can be found as early as round 17. Some of those units might not be a 2-star unit, but ideally we do want them to be 2-star. For this first case, we have 6 hunters, 2 heartless, and this is a full offense team. This team does not have any form of tankiness except Tiny and Pudge, which can be great. Tiny is the front tank unless we want to swap them. Those two can be interchanged. Tiny's stun is very crucial because without a tank, if we stun AoE for 2 seconds, we can shred everyone with Heartless and Hunters. I usually pick this one when I have a Hunter's focus, or other times I pick this one when I have enough damage items like Maelstrom and that to help out to shred enemy. Also, the Forging battle can help us tank as well with the Beastmaster. The second formation we have is a Warrior Hunter Heartless lineup. Over here, Necro is used to have the 4 Heartless with the 4 for Grace. So we turn Lycan into a Heartless, so we have 4 Heartless. If we don't have the 4 from Grace, what we can do is we don't need a Necro, we can replace Necro and Doom with something else. Maybe a Marana, maybe something that helps us a little bit. Maybe we can replace the Necro with a Gyrocopter if we find one as well. Some of us can be lucky enough to find a Gyrocopter at level 8 as well. We can position the Gyrocopter where the Necro is or where the corner is to bait spells away. On this particular formation, we did find the Gyrocopter. Over here, the same idea goes further as well. The Lycan can be a Heartless with the 4th on Grace. The Dead Eye from Gyro and Sniper is very good, because what it allows it to do is kills the unit with the lowest HP. This often is the Joranger or the Crystal Maiden, which are the key supports of the lineup, for the Hunters and for the Mages. Gyrocopter can be positioned over here on the other corner if we don't want him to be buffed by the Joranger, because he can be baiting spells away. If enemies have Conkers, if enemy have, Enigma, or just anything that's massively AoE, or even Mages, Gyrocopter in the corner is so much better. He can also benefit in the corner against Assassins. Maximum 3 Assassins onto him, with 15 armor and 900 HP, he can survive long enough with a cast most of the time. One of the highlight for this particular lineup is we also have the Savage. Having the Savage means that we can have Tooth and Claw. Tooth and Claw allow us to have some great damage in the early and mid game. Lycan with Tooth and Claw and his wolves will do double attack. Those bleeding damage actually goes a long way. Even in the late game, they can stack up a lot of damage, and he's usually the top of the leaderboard for me with damage. Let's look into the late game. Late game starts ultra early for me. It's round 21 and plus. To maintain the aggression, we may be leveling to level 9 and round 21. Most of us will be level 8 and round 21, but level 9 is the ultra aggression we have. We'll be keep rolling for tier 4 and tier 5 units to 2-star, and we'll roll down to 30 or 20 gold. That's when we still have the HP as buffer, say 40 or 50% HP. When my HP goes lower, I can roll down to 20 or 10 gold, or even 0 gold at this stage. So yes, we might still have HP over 50, but this is when most other players go all in. Keep in mind, they haven't been going aggressive, and this is the timing window to spend, so this is when they pick up so many units. We want to be matching their power spike and minimize our losses. We also want to try to kill them before they get the time to spend. We often see players still have gold on them before they die because they haven't spent fast enough, and sometimes they're not prepared by the 8 or 9 units we have, which deals a lot of damage, especially with legendaries. If we're at level 9, we plan for a good roll. So this is the idea of the mindset we want to have when we're rolling for units. We want to plan for a pickup of a unit, say a tier 4 or tier 5, or maybe a 2-star unit on the bench. We want to think about where to position this unit and what it was going to replace if we want to swap a 2-star. Because there's only now 25 seconds in each of the preparation rounds, and sometimes we run out of time because, I see a great legendary, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Which one do I swap Medusa with? Do I swap Windrunner? Do I swap something else? The answer is we swap Medusa with Windrunner or Windranger most of the time. And we don't want our brain to freeze. We want to be prepared, anticipating in the rounds, because this is a late game, and if we make a small mistake in the late game, those players with vicious intent can destroy us. I lost over 25 HP losing to 4 or 5 units because of that, so we definitely want to be prepared. In the late game, positioning is very important. The first tip we have is repositioning after each loss. One of the few ways we can reposition is to have mirror adjustments. We can change our entire lineup from left to right by doing a mirror adjust. So this can be the difference maker against the same player, because he can be great on one side, but he's not so great on the other side. Of course, there are other adjustments we can have as well. We want to have units ready to bait for the Pudge hook if the players running with warriors with Pudges. We want to have a tank in the backline, or maybe even 2 against assassins. We want to have AoE baits like Gyrocopter, or even a unit in the corner that's far away from most of our units. They can also bait assassins into the corner. Now, the key with positioning into the late game is to know which is the main tank and initiator, which is the off tank. The difference here is how many units is 2-star and how many units is 1-star. We want to maximize how much mana gain from taking damage, and we want to be casting faster than most other enemies. The downside is, if we don't position properly, our casters can die before they cast, so we do want to balance that. The initiators for us are the ones that stuns. This can be Tidehunter, Disruptor is a disabler with silence, Conquer, and Tiny. I prefer Tiny over those because Tidehunter is harder to be found at 2-star, and Disruptor and Conquer don't fully stun people. Conquer is a little slow, while Tiny turns out to be the best. But Tidehunter at 2-star is still very good. After those, we still have the Disfabulous as Medusa, which AoE stuns for those that looks at her. Lich, the Chain of Force, can slow enemy with attack and movement. Gyrocopter also AoE slows enemy with his AoE cooldown. Doom can silence a unit, while Sand King can be a stunner. When we hit level 9, we have no other unit put in a Sand King. He is better than a Tide at 1-star. The main Initiators should be 2-star and on the corner of the formation. We'll see this on the variation. The off-tank and the Initiators should be in the middle of the two main tanks or the Initiators. This allows the off-tank to survive long enough to take some damage and to cast the spells before they die. A 2-star techie can be positioned in the center of the things, while a 1-star techie can be used as an off-tank. Techies is great because most of our lineup runs the Heartless. With Techies casting with Heartless, he can do amplified damage, which can be massive in killing summons or bursting down enemy, because Hunters do lack lots of AoE damage. For the item choices of late game, most of us do know the best item for the late game, and we'll be having a tier list for that. The key is to think about having items that helps the lineup right now, instead of investing for the later runs. I see players picking family discount, sometimes even baited by recruiter, sometimes the late game like investment kind of items might not be the best, because if we're low on HP, we might die right now. We might not make it long enough to make use of those items. So other than that, we want to pick items that compensate the lineup. If our lineup is lacking in terms of tankiness, maybe Vanguard can work, or maybe a Mechanism. If our lineup lacks in damage, maybe we can go Maelstrom, maybe a Relic. So we'll be having an item guide coming, which will describe the items in general, but with Hunters, we do want the things that can be procced with multi-attacks. Lastly, I want to discuss this idea with Maximal Aggression. I have had quite a bit of success with Maximal Aggression, and most of our Hunter lineups tend to come top 4 or top 3 because of this. I'm not saying this is always the way to run things, but this is a suggestion we can look into. I have tried to go to level 10 and round 26 with mixed results. We came top 2 and won most of the time because we're already ahead, and by doing this we kill players before round 30. There's other times that I come top 3 because by doing this I have the most HP to be protected, and in the late game the top 2 players tends to kill everybody else except me because I can withstand a few losses. Our strategy favors 2 stars and additional tier 5 units, or more alliance combinations, say maybe 4 Heartless, say maybe 6 Hunters with 3 Warriors, which do require a lot of space. So having 10 units really helps. This is great before round 31, but as we go into later game, people tend to find 3-star units and they can defeat us with the 3-star units. So we'll be losing 1 or 2 of those 3-star units every round. But knowing this aggressive strategy kills other players who's not strong enough before 31, the solid HP buffer we build up allows us to look for tier 5 units as we lose. So we're looking for 2-star tier 5 units like Lich, Medusa and Gyro, and once those are found with the correct item and positioning, we can make a comeback as well. Now most of the time I only attempt this because most of my units are already 2-star. If too many units are not 2-star, it's better to be rolling at level 9. But of course, be prepared to find a good legendary at level 9 and be prepared to swap that in. Let's look into late game lineup choices and variation. Most of those lineups are 9 and 10 units teams. In the first lineup, we have the 6 Hunters, 2 Heartless, the Scaled, and the Deadeye. This is an overall good lineup against mages. We're not that great against physical lineups, but this lineup is quite offensive. The Tidehunter needs to be 2-star to be useful. If he's not a 2-star, what we can do is we can swap the Tidehunter and the Pudge, because we want to defend against this corner, so Tidehunter is better on this corner. The Pudge is an off-tank. He is likely to hook the enemy protected unit, or he's going to hook an assassin that's attacking us in the backline. The Gyrocopter is here to bait units away, and most spells can be baited 50% of the time onto this side. Lycan just here to chill. He can be on this side as well, and most of Hunter lineups do go around the Draw Ranger, which tend to have Mechanism and Pipe sometimes. This is the second lineup. In this particular lineup, it is more defensive balanced Warrior Hunter lineup with 6 Hunters. Here we do not have the Gyrocopter. We can use the Beastmaster as a bait, because at this stage the Beastmaster's only contribution is those flying axes. And if he gets attacked by a few units, it's good for him to get enough mana. Also, he's not in the front of the battle. Here, we want to look out for the Tide and Counter to be the main stunner. The Pudge against to be hooking units that's going to the backline or the enemy protected unit. Medusa is more forwardly positioned to receive some damage from ranged unit and also to be casting her spells AoE against the enemy. Now, if you're stronger, want to face this lineup against the enemy team. If you're weaker, we want to be on the diagonal corner. So if enemies over here, they're stronger, we want to be facing him here. If they're stronger that's facing us, we want to mirror shift this entire lineup onto the other side. What we can see here is this has the potential to go with the 4th on Grace to have 4 Heartless. We can take away the Scaled and replace Tide with something else, like a Troll Warlord. Because if we don't need to defend against mages, Troll Warlord actually does quite a bit. This is another variation. In this particular variation, we're going with 4 Heartless. Here we might not have the 6 Hunters because at times we tend to find more legendaries as we level up to level 9, level 10. Over here, the Pudge is the main tank while the Conquer is here to protect the Necro and the Medusa. All we're hoping for is that we survive long enough with the healing of Necro to be casting spells from Medusa and Lich. With enough time added, the Gyro can also cast a Cauldron. Here the 6 Heartless with the 4th on Grace. This is 4th on Grace actually spelled correctly. So we will have the 6 Heartless. By having the 6 Heartless turning the Conquer and Lycan into the Heartless, we can be shredding enemies with AoE spells and enough control. The downside of this is that we might not do enough physical damage because we only have 4 Hunters. Lastly, we have a 10 composition team lineup. We are not going to use the expand raster because we probably won't find it, but some of those things can be useful. The most useful ones are the Hunters Focused and Fortune Battle, because over here we have Disruptor and Beastmaster. This is the great spread because we have units on far corners. We maximize an alliance with Warlock for the healing of Hunters. Here you can see we have 6 alliance synergy. We have the Deadeye. Most of the lineup we're facing in this stage can be magical. So if you're facing a Savage lineup, you still want to consider Warriors as the front line. But with this lineup, the Medusa and Necro can cast quite fast. The Challenger allows those 4 units to have the maximum attack speed, Disruptor and Tide, 1 stuns and 1 with silence. Marana will be stunning and jumping away while Windrunner can be baiting spells. This gives us the most wide capacity to avoid AoE catch by the mages. The downside is, if the mage happen to catch this middle corner, we might still lose. So it is a gamble, but here we have 3 eggs separating us. The highlight here is on top of the scaled units, we can also pick up a pipe. By having a pipe, I'll have it on the Draw Ranger to keep those units alive. This is where the most damage and sustain will come from. Disruptor and Necro can be healing most of the units in this side. Necro can heal very far, I believe it's actually 3 cells. The Necro can be very good. And the Warlocks are surprisingly strong, especially when we find a Warlock item as well. But it is not a necessary item, it's more like, the icing on the cake. We'll go into a Scrappy Mage build next. I'm looking into that, something that's fun and something we can go into 3-star, tinker with as well. We're also going to a Savage build, which is also in the meta as well. I am preparing the item, alliance, and units tier list as well. So very soon we'll have those for us to be posted, so we can use those with most of our guides. Overall, this whole concept is based on having more hunters and the dominance that hunters can have with the warriors, heartless, and a cheap few synergies, maybe savages. Because of that, this build tends to be more aggressive. As we spend and save aggressively in the early and mid game, we tend to have a better positioning as most players are not ready for this burst of spending. The downside of this is that, actually, what downside? No, this is a great build now, I'm joking. So, the downside of this build is that we tend to not find enough 3-stars. Also, at the point of this build, the positive side is that because we're spending and leveling aggressively, we're not rolling and not missing. as we level up, the free space that added another unit onto level 8 and level 9 can always be there. So the money is invested instead of used as a gambling for a 3-star unit. Hopefully you guys like this build. Please subscribe and turn the little bell on my YouTube channel to support me on YouTube, also to be ready for the next guide and the builds to come. We also have very high rank games to come with world top 50 plays, and also we're going for world number 1 as well. So lots of builds, lots of fun games to come on my YouTube channel. Please also follow and subscribe to support me on Twitch as well, as we'll be making live guides and testing builds there as well. Thank you so much everyone for all your support. I'll see you guys next time.